Okay, guys, there we are. Welcome to this week's live podcast. As you can see, we've got another special guest who we're going to introduce in a second here, alongside our resident Bitcoin mining analyst, Anthony. So, Anthony, how are you feeling this morning?
Feeling good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a busy week for us. I know we have had a number of interviews. We'll get on to that in a second. We've still got Soluna and Bit Digital coming up actually this afternoon and tomorrow. But before we start talking about that, you guys, we wanted to introduce a special guest we have on the program. This is Freedom by 40. So many of you may know him from Twitter, a very good following on there, about 14,000 now. It's crept up considerably since we first started talking Freedom. And a big focus on the technical analysis portion of stocks in general, but specifically the Bitcoin miners. So welcome to the channel. Thanks so much for making the time. And why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I guess I'll start with, from the Midwest. Started investing about 5 years ago. Always had a big interest in investing. Started off with real estate, and then my then girlfriend, now wife, actually, she was more into Robinhood and stocks and whatnot when we met. So I got involved and started trading neo options, and the rest is history. So now I love it. I'm really excited to be here and happy to complement your guys' great fundamental analysis with some TA, because I rely heavily on you guys, and I rely heavily on the likes of Sebastian, DR Lewis as well. So really excited to, feature my technical side for some people out there. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And that's what we're looking forward to as well. We've had DR Lewis on the channel previously, obviously Sebastian. It's a fairly tight-knit community here, and we can all kind of help each other put these pieces together and hopefully outsmart some of the Wall Street guys and make a little bit of money in the process. The technical analysis is a special trait, though, you guys, and we've actually brought a slide for each and every one of the public miners, all 16 that we cover on the channel. So we're going to get into that in the question portion. So if you guys have specific questions about any of the miners, including Cipher, CleanSpark, Marathon, Riot, all of the big names, we're more than happy to go through that in today's presentation. Now, we've already got 50 people plus in the stream. So you guys maybe smash a like button here for Freedom and his debut appearance on YouTube, and we'll get right into it. So next up, you guys, we wanted to take a quick look at the markets here this morning. So Anthony, interestingly enough, we had Bitdeer and Hut on the channel yesterday for a discussion, both HPC related, and both of these companies are leading the pack this morning. They were up double digits when I initially took this screenshot. They've pulled back a little bit. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously due to the appearance on our podcast, the increase in share price there. And no. I mean, the market at the moment, we've highlighted this over the last few weeks now. It's looking at these mining companies that are just doing a little bit more than just Bitcoin mining. We've spoken to the analysts on Wall Street, and they've come back and said, the mining is not as predictable as some of the other businesses. It's still a viable business, but it's not as predictable as the revenues that they can achieve through some of the HPC contracts that these mining companies have got. So, having had Bitdeer and Hut on the podcast yesterday, the discussions were about the other things that they're doing, and it was quite obvious from both discussions that HPC is very much high on the agenda for both of those companies and for many of the 16 companies that we cover. And actually, when you look at pure play Bitcoin miners, you're down to sort of Bitfarms, Marathon Digital, although we'll talk a little more about Marathon Digital maybe later in the podcast. Riot Platforms, pure play, and CleanSpark, definitely pure play. Now, in fairness, Jason, in a discussion with us a couple of weeks ago at his facility, was actually giving kudos to what Adam Sullivan's done at Core Scientific and got that contract together. I mean, that for me, that piece of news on CoreWeave is probably the largest piece of news in the Bitcoin mining space this year. I don't think anything else has affected the market as much as that has. And now the emphasis is looking at some of these mining companies that have got power and infrastructure, and whether that can be utilized to provide these HPC services. some people about 6 months ago were pouring scorn on miners moving into that space now, but Wall Street like it. Wall Street like the predictability. You have a contract, you have revenues throughout that contract, you have costs associated with those revenues, you have predictable profit margins. And for a company like Core Scientific, bear in mind, they only came out of Chapter 11 6 months ago, less than 6 months ago, 12th of January, come out of Chapter 11. They were highlighting in their presentation the revenue streams over the 12 years of that contract and all the costs associated. And from year 3 onwards, you're looking at sort of 80% in terms of margins. Now they've extended that contract with CoreWeave for a further 70 megawatts, taking a total to 270 megawatts. That's going to bring profitable revenues for that contract on a daily basis from year 3 onwards of about $850,000 a day. That's a significant amount. And if you try to do the numbers of what sort of hash rate you'd have to achieve 850,000 in profit, not in revenue, in profit, you'd need hash rate greater than some of these miners added together at the moment. I mean, it really is a game-changing contract. Now, we're not here to say that HPC is the way forward, because Jason articulated again by the fact that Bitcoin mining's here to stay, and they want to be the best Bitcoin miner in the space. So he puts a strong argument across for why they don't want to go into HPC, even though they've got an enormous site at Corsicana. But you can't not realise the emphasis of that impact of that deal's had on the other mining companies over the last 2 or 3 weeks in terms of share price growth. And we're just seeing this again today. Bitdeer, Hut, both focusing on their Bit Digital as well, focusing on there. CleanSpark and Marathon have had some news in the last 2 days, and we'll cover both those news items later. So their share price is up there. But yeah, it's a sort of a great place to be at the moment, because we're seeing differentiation now and diversification, and that's only good for some of these mining companies.
Yeah, it definitely is. And we're going to talk about that in more detail, guys, as we move through the presentation. We've got 2 more slides to get into before we start rocking into the individual slides per company. So next one here, quick look at hash price. Really not a lot of change, you guys, hovering right around that $50 range. Anthony, any surprises here from your standpoint? And I guess, Freedom, question for you. Do you do any sort of technical analysis on the Bitcoin price and hash price, or is that more so for the individual companies?
Yeah, definitely for Bitcoin price. I don't do the hash price, but Bitcoin obviously has a huge effect on what the miners are doing. So right now, I think most miners are doing quite well in relation to Bitcoin. But once Bitcoin really turns, miners will really run. As of now, they're outperforming Bitcoin. Most of them are over the past at least month. But I think once Bitcoin actually turns, there will be quite a run for miners, especially the non-HPC AI miners that are kind of running on that narrative right now. I think the more pure play Bitcoin miners like the Riots, Marathons, CleanSparks will get a new boost, right, when Bitcoin actually turns. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some of that money rotate back into the more pure play Bitcoin miners relatively soon.
Yeah, 100%. And the hash price at the moment, we've seen it drop as low as 44. I'll give you a little indication. Having spoke to one CEO of a big mining company and said, how much does it need to drop before you start literally switching off machines? And the number he gave me was 29. So we're still above a rate at the moment that some of these miners will be starting switching off. We'll cover the difficulty, shortly. But that hash price there, sort of, between sort of the 46.50 is where it was to be expected anyway. And hash price is effectively the Bitcoin price as opposed to the global hash rate there. So, the impact on doing your Bitcoin TNA analysis does impact the hash price, as we'll see when Bitcoin price changes, the hash price changes as well.
Yeah, most definitely. So $29 per terahash. That's an interesting number to keep an eye on, you guys, in terms of hash price, where we're starting to hear miners say, hey, we're going to actually have to turn machines off. The other number we've been throwing around, $110,000 per Bitcoin, as a critical pivot point between the HPC play to the pure play Bitcoin mining. And that's exactly what Freedom just alluded to. Obviously, the HPC players are in the limelight right now. But if and when we start to see the Bitcoin price creeping up north of those all-time highs into the six figures, it may really flip the script here on a lot of these miners. Now, Anthony, you mentioned difficulty. We can go to that next up. I quickly wanted to show up just top 4 performers year to date. We have Wolf now up just about 100%, IREN, Soluna, and then, of course, CleanSpark in 4th position, guys. So this is one we've kind of been keeping an eye on over the last few weeks, and wanted to throw that in as well. Now, Anthony, you mentioned difficulty here. So talk to us a little bit about this. So it's expected to drop about 8%. The difficulty visual is in the top left for everyone watching here. This is what we expected to see post-halving, but it's taken a little bit of time to get there. What do you make of the next difficulty adjustment?
Yeah, I mean, we've just literally talked about the hash price and where it is at the moment. It's dropped below 50. You can see there that the time it's taking now to actually produce one block, which is supposed to be 10 minutes, it's taking 10.9 minutes. So, that will continue to take a long time until the difficulty changes. And every 2 weeks, the difficulty resets. So at that point in time, it will look to try and give the miners on the network the opportunity to mine every 10 minutes. So it makes it slightly easier for them. So at the moment, what you're seeing is miners are coming off the global network, those inefficient miners, maybe some of those miners where the energy price now is just going to be too high in terms of the rewards they're seeing. So if you look at that hash price there, which includes the Bitcoin price, and it includes the transaction fees at the moment, we're not seeing that level of transaction fees that we saw pre and post the halving due to, a number of, like the runes and the NFTs. There's no consistency over a period. Seems to be like, there's a 2 or 3 day bump here, then it goes off for a few weeks, maybe have another 2 or 3 day bump. Miners will want to see more consistency in revenues. And if they don't see that, and this is globally miners, not just the North American miners that we're discussing, they'll come off the network and wait for the price to get to a position where it starts becoming profitable. You'll still see, and I believed that post the halving, there's probably still people mining Bitcoin, hoping for the real boost in the price and maybe mining it at a loss. So not even covering their costs, but on the hope that the Bitcoin they were mining at some point in the near future would be able to be traded in to cover their lost position. And we haven't seen any sort of surge yet, but we are getting close to where once you've gone sort of 2 to 3 months past the halving, in previous cycles, we have seen a significant bump in the Bitcoin price. And maybe Freedom can articulate that in a second as to, if he's covered that in the Bitcoin price technicals to see how that might look. But the 10 minutes, so 10.9 minutes at the moment, that will get reduced at the next change in difficulty, which is due to be a week tomorrow. So we're still quite 8 days away, and that percentage can change rapidly. And during the last sort of day or so like that, it just changes and then it'll stabilize then. But looking now, I'd say the difficulty will go down. Now, one last point. So the more efficient miners on the network that stay on the network, that is music to their ears, because that means they can produce a little bit more Bitcoin when it's rewarded. So all these mining companies, they are part of the big pools. There's probably about 10 or 12 big mining pools, and all that hash rate added together gives everyone the sort of within reasonableness, the same opportunity to mine the same amount of Bitcoin by hash rate. So if you're mining at 1 exahash and the total hash rate is, say, 100 exahash, you're going to get 1% of the block rewards. And without the element of luck, which is a very small percentage, probably less than 2%, you're generally going to get what you expect in terms of you're adding hash rate to the global hash rate network. You'll get rewarded for that hash rate. And a lot of these miners will know in advance what they're getting. They sign up to contracts that say, if I provide 2 exahash or 3 exahash to the network, what am I expected to receive on a monthly basis, based on a lot of the metric factors there. But they sort of know with some prediction what they're going to receive.
Gotcha. And not only do we have the older, less efficient miners coming off, but every single one of these HPC contracts that's signed, that's a whole bunch of exahash and megawatts that's no longer being allocated to Bitcoin mining as well. So we'll get on to that in a second here. 2 quick shout outs, you guys. Our good friend Anthony's been invited to speak at Bitcoin Nashville. We're both going to be down there. Freedom, I believe you're coming down for the conference as well, are you?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll be there. I think I'll be there at least Thursday, Friday. So I'll be down there if anybody wants to rendezvous and try and figure something out. It'd be cool to meet some people. Definitely going to see you too. I'm excited for that. So.
Yeah, we'll be doing a meetup there for sure. For anyone who wants to join us, we're more than welcome. And yeah, audio sounds great now, Freedom. We got a comment about the microphone, you guys. It was not a microphone, it was an air conditioning unit. So we got that one sorted out. We're good to go. The other quick shout out, Bitcoin Rodeo. So this is actually taking place in Calgary, July 2nd and 3rd in my hometown. I was able to get a media pass kindly from the team at Bitcoin Rodeo. So I just wanted to shout that out as well. Anyone in the Alberta region, it would be great to see you guys. I'm going to be there both days. We've had a few of the speakers that are at this event actually on the channel as well. Nico Moran from Simply Bitcoin. And looking forward to meeting up with a number of other enthusiasts in the Alberta, Calgary area just before Stampede. So make sure if you're able to attend, we'd love to see you at that one as well. Now, getting into the technical analysis here, I think this is the main event, Freedom. A lot of people were signed up for this one. A lot of people are really curious about your price target predictions. Now, before we get into this, you guys, I wanted to preface, we do not do price predictions on our channel. This is not financial advice. The purpose of this is to highlight and educate you guys on a few pieces of information on the technical analysis side. Anthony and I do a ton of fundamental analysis. We prefer looking backwards and looking at released public information. Freedom by 40 takes it a step further and projects out some future trending and modeling using techniques we're going to talk about in today's video. So again, do your own due diligence, you guys. Don't necessarily take our word or Freedom's for it, but a really interesting take and another great way to analyze these companies, which we think delivers a lot of value to the audience. So Freedom, maybe we can start off first things first with Bitdeer. This is one, or sorry, Bitfarms. This is one that we've been talking about extensively on the channel. There's been a ton of news in relation to Riot's acquisition. And Anthony had a great question earlier. In terms of the technical analysis, how do you factor in these big pieces of news that were maybe unexpected or unheard of to the market, like the CoreWeave announcement or the one from Hut 8? How does that factor into the technical side of things?
Yeah, so great question. Basically, and this is going to sound weird, but technical analysis allows you to, a trend, a way of thing. Like I basically had a feeling. I think I published a post actually about Bitfarms and said, I think this is going to turn pretty soon. Now I don't know why. I don't know what the catalyst might be. That's where the fundamental piece comes in. Maybe you're doing your research like these guys in the background. And you may have some insight into what's coming. And I do fundamental analysis, but I lean literally probably, 85% technical and most people are either one or the other, right? So, but when it comes to technical analysis, the idea is, that something's going to happen, right? Whether it's bad or good. You can tell by the structure of the chart that, hey, like something probably is going to happen to Bitfarms. I think I usually word it pretty much like that in my post. And we did see, obviously, the announcement with all the Riot stuff pop off, right? So that kind of launched it into what I have as wave one right there in orange. So I use what's called Elliott theory or Elliott wave theory as my primary tool of technical analysis. But I'll get into a few other things. I have a few arrows going to places. I wish I could almost no dig on you, Bryce, but just control it so I could kind of move my mouse around because it's going to be a little challenging to explain. But yeah, long-winded answer, but technical analysis allows you to kind of not predict, but project what may happen to the price in the future. But you obviously don't know why, like the actual catalyst or what bad is coming.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost the chicken and the egg, right? Does the news support the chart or does the chart support the news? Now, Anthony, on the fundamental side, we've seen some big news out of Bitfarms, not only in relation to Riot, but really with their extension of their internal strategy and growing or providing guidance to over 35 exahash next year. So the way I'm envisioning this, you guys, is maybe for each company here, as we get questions, we can go in, we can talk about the recent events. Anthony, you can give us your analysis on kind of what's going on in the headlines. And then we can get into this Elliott wave theory and the technical analysis by you, Freedom. So that's kind of how I envision this. We'll go over to the chat section here, you guys, see if we have anything going on. I did see a few questions about HUT already, so maybe we can start off with HUT 8 if that works for you, Freedom.
Yep.
Okay, so I've made a legend here. We should be on slide 17. 1 second. Let's see if this is HUT 8. Oh, look at that, boys. Excellent. Okay, so HUT 8 Mining, or HUT 8 Corp, sorry. Anthony, a lot of news really in relation to HUT. We had them on, Asher and Sue, yesterday talking about this big $150 million CO2 investment or partnership. Can you give viewers just an update or summary of kind of that discussion and your thoughts on HUT right now? Moving in a big way today, I should add.
Yeah, I mean, we've sort of, I've been following HUT now for over 3 years before they merged with US BTC. And to be honest, apart from the sizable hodl, they're sort of, I think they were trying to find where they were going to go themselves. They're having problems in Canada with their facilities and their energy and their machines. And it's simply one problem after another. Their hash rate was never really growing anywhere significantly. 2 years ago, they themselves were looking at 6 exahash. It never really got to, above 3. And so, we've seen that sort of downward trend in their share price over the last few years. Then the merger was announced and it took a year to go through. And now they have a company there where they can operate in the US. They have facilities that they can put mining machines into. From USBT's side of it, they've joined a company that's got a fantastic balance sheet with capital available in the form of 9,000 plus Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So that makes a merger of two equals that require each other more than one requires the other more so. But this latest announcement with 150 million from CO2 in terms of investment, that will give them, funding to develop their services going forward. I mean, they're not leaving Bitcoin mining behind, but they do a lot more than Bitcoin mining. And Asher sort of gave the overview of if you look at it from Bitcoin self-mining perspective, it's actually quite small. They manage sites for other mining companies. They have their own sites that they provide hosting services. They have HPC contracts, so they've got 5 data centers. They've got thousands of GPUs that they have from the Ethereum mining days. So all this sort of makes them a business that's moving in a lot of different ways at the moment. So, we'll see more announcements coming through now with, exactly how they're going to spend that 150 million. But, they're very keen, with the fact that the HPC news items are taking over the whole of the news at the moment in terms of the mining space. It wouldn't surprise me if there's some announcements in that space there to show that they're taking that quite seriously too. But me personally, I'd like to see some growth in the self-mining, get some of those mining machines replaced with more efficient miners, because they haven't bought any new miners for 2 or 3 years now. So they've got an aging fleet. They've got a massive amount of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. But Asher's, since he's been in charge, the share price has gone up by 100%. So he'll be articulating that, some of the things he's doing is giving that company going in the right direction. He said, tell me by Q3 if my plans aren't starting to work. And so, he's got another 3 or 4 months in the chair before people start and looking at, what was said as to what's happened and giving any benefit for that or not. And the share price will reflect that. But it looks this last few weeks, the share price is going in the right direction. But that's the fundamental side. Now I'll hand over to Freedom and he can talk us a bit more of the technical side of it, which is just as important.
Yeah, so I actually just posted a tweet about this one right before I came on. So basically, I'm using Fibonacci extension. So if you see that white sequence of lines there, basically that wave 1, it's a leading diagonal up. And then I took a Fibonacci retracement and calculated where I thought that wave 2 in white might go. And then using that, I'm projecting where I think waves 3, 4, and 5 will go. And now I won't know 4 or 5 until we get 3. But if you look at my most recent post on Twitter, I just said that, it's starting to get a little bit overheated here. As you can see, the bottom, this is going to be a little challenging, but the bottom indicator there is the stochastic RSI with the blue and orange line. And it's getting up towards the top, right? So if you look towards July, last July, actually, ironically, of last year, you can see how the stochastic RSI starts rolling over. The blue line goes over the orange line. And you can also see that corresponds exactly with the A wave top. So the last time HUT topped, actually the last two times.
Sorry, Freedom, your stochastic RSI, you're talking about the bottom two lines on this visual, not up top here, you guys.
Correct. Very bottom where it has the dates.
Gotcha.
So you can see July of last year, and you can also see, it looks like maybe January of 2024, where these blue lines cross over the orange. You can see that those were actually local tops, right? So we're getting there, right? And I can stay elevated for a while, but it corresponds with my Elliott wave target, which is around $17 to $20 before we just cool off for a little bit. So I just posted, if you look at the RSI in this picture, so the stochastic RSI is the one below. The RSI is the one above that, just a straight purple line. It says 66 over here on the right-hand side. That now, I haven't looked, but I'm sure it's probably at 80 after today, or at least 75. So that's starting to get up there. And you just got to be a little bit cautious of a small pullback, most likely coming for HUTs. And then we'll get that wave 5 higher. So that's kind of how I look at charts. I use the stochastic RSI, I use volume, and I also use the normal RSI. I also use the MACD, which is not on these charts, but that's just because I didn't want to have to explain, have too many things to make the chart too small, essentially. But those are the main tools I use.
So interestingly enough, yeah, HUT 8 was up about 13% today. It's now up about 1%. So potentially your thesis coming true here, Freedom. But I just wanted to back up for 1 second here, guys. So RSI, Freedom, can you just explain how the RSI works? Relative strength index, oversold, overbought. This is one that I personally use a lot. I find it very easy to understand. Pretty much you just watch that 20 and 80 line and adjust from there. But for people who are brand new to technical analysis, this looks like a new language to them. Can you just explain what each one of these 3 different charts actually shows?
Yeah, so really the RSI is very simple. Like Bryce just said, you're typically watching a range between 40 and 80, and it's just showing you the strength of the stock. And then all you want to look out for really is, when you get to these peaks, when you get really high, you obviously got to be a little bit cautious because that just means the stock's getting quite overheated. It can remain elevated, especially in assets like these, proxies of Bitcoin, altcoins, Bitcoin itself. But you're not going to see these levels for that long typically, especially in other assets. If you're looking at, Eli Lilly or Johnson & Johnson, like the RSI is probably never even going to get to those type of levels.
Sure.
But the one below it is the stochastic RSI, and that's really a momentum indicator. Same thing, but it just has another average underneath it. So it has basically the normal RSI, and then it has another momentum indicator underneath it. So it's a combination of both of those.
Now, what's interesting here, you guys, and you can add to this, Freedom, but is if you look at last July, for example, you can see on both of the RSI indicators, those bottom 2 line graphs, they were above that critical 80, meaning that HUT 8 at that point in time was overbought and indicating maybe it may be looking for a cool back. And if you actually look at the top chart here, you guys, you can see that initial A circle, that's the local top for HUT, which almost coincides perfectly with the RSI breaking above 80 at that point in time. So I know you used that in your initial example, Freedom, but maybe just explain how they're kind of related to share price as well.
Yeah, so exactly what you're saying. I mean, when things get up right into that 60, 70, 80 region, usually it's just a good time to start paying attention. And then also on the bottoms, right, you can see when you get lower, it's typically a better time to buy. Not always, right, because the stock could just be, not all stocks are great, right? So if you have high conviction, that's where kind of the fundamental analysis comes in too. You need to have high conviction in these stocks in order to have high conviction in these quote unquote lines, as people say. So you're not just going to be buying, or going all in on a stock if you haven't done your research in the background. That's why the fundamental piece is so important too. You ideally have both. Any big investments I have, like Bitcoin, CleanSpark, Tesla, Solana, I know all the fundamentals when it comes to those. Now, when it comes to trading, which I don't advise, but obviously some people know that I do trade options. That's more, that's more technical to me because I don't really care about the fundamentals in those shorter swings. A lot of times the technicals will be more important in the short term. So.
Gotcha. And then just final question for me, and then we'll start getting into some other companies here. The green boxes, what does that mean on the top chart there, Freedom?
Yeah. So basically I'm using Fibonacci. So if you see those lines, those are, I wish I could do it live for you guys, but I'm pulling from the bottom of the wave 1 in white to the bottom of the wave 2, or the top of wave 1 to the bottom of wave 2. And then that's going to give me basically a fib extension. So all those lines, the 0.786, the 1 fib, the 1.236, those are all basically levels that are likely for the next extension. So I use green boxes because no one's good enough. I don't care who they are to just say like, oh, the price is going here. So I use green boxes basically to show very likely targets. So for a wave 3, for instance, a likely target is anywhere between the 1.38 and the 1.618. But it can go way higher, right? So I'm always conservative in my price, my green boxes, which sometimes annoys my followers on Twitter, but there's many instances where price will go a lot higher, right? So Anthony and I were talking before the show, and with CoreWeave, right, I had a green box. It looked just like this, right? So I knew that something was probably going to happen, right, in a good way, but I had no idea what it was. And that catalyst blew my green box, way out of the water. I think it extended all the way up to the 3.618. So,
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? It's you can tell the direction, but you can't tell the intensity of the waves in either direction. So that's why there's green boxes, so that you have an area of likeliness for something to land.
Gotcha. So let's put this into practical use. So I feel like the reason people love technical analysis is because it gives them concrete price targets to look for, right? Whereas Anthony and I, we educate you, but ultimately you have to come up with your own decision. Now, Jordan here has asked us a perfect example. So Jordan wants to know, where is Wolf going to be trading at the end of July, which coincidentally kind of lines up with your charts here. So if we jump over to the Wolf slide, maybe we can take what we just learned on HUD 8 and put this into practice for TeraWulf. And then Anthony, obviously we've seen some developments in terms of construction and developments on the fundamental side, which we can speak to right after that.
Yeah, so Wolf's one of my larger positions now. Same with IREN, just because we got some calls right. Again, I had no idea the HPC AI thing. I had no idea that was going to take off, but I did know that the charts for, IREN, cores, and Wolf. I don't have a cores position. I wish I did. But I knew those were going to probably take off soon. I had no idea why. Again, there's no way to know that piece just looking at a chart, obviously. But to answer your question, Jordan, I personally think, we're getting close. Again, if you look at the stochastic RSI down there, and you look at the normal RSI, it's getting up there, right? So it's definitely a time to exercise caution. I think personally that Wolf likely has another week or two of upside momentum into the $6 to $7 range before we get a sizable pullback. But that's end of July. I mean, these are tough questions. That's another important thing to note. So even though this is on a time scale, it's extremely hard to nail times down correctly. So Elliott wave is based on price. It's not based on time. So I get that question a lot in my charts. These are really just more estimates time-wise, because I know how the waves typically would line out. That wave 3s are longer than wave 1s typically, and that wave 5s are typically about the length of a wave 1. So it's really a best guess as far as the exact date, right? So if you say, when is it going to happen? What's the price going to be in July? That's pretty challenging to do, but I could say maybe, you know, by August, I would expect to see, you know, a $6 wolf. But at that point, again, depending on the indicators, you know, I would personally take some off the table at that point. So I'm constantly changing too, right? It's all based on indicators, and so sometimes people get pissed about that, but the reality is everything changes with the new. It's like a clue, you know. Everything is just, I get clues from the charts, and then I have to update not the counts, but I'll update, you know, for example, with cores. Like if the price goes to $9, well, it's obviously, you know, I have to adjust my green box, and therefore the wave 4 retracement is not going to come nearly as low as I had it, because I had wave 3 going to like $5 and it went to $9.
Sure.
So these things have to be adjusted in real time. And you can only know so much without the next day's price action, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Anthony, what's your take on the technical side of things? Is it lining up with what you're seeing in terms of Wolf press releases?
Yeah, I mean, one thing about Wolf is they're probably one of the most vertically integrated miners out there. They've got the power, they've got the facilities, great facilities, great assets, and that's what you need to be a Bitcoin miner. You've got to have all the elements. It's not just saying we've got a bunch of machines. You've got to have quality infrastructure. You've got to have quality machines, and they're growing, you know, at a good rate now. We've just even seen updates from TeraWulf saying that Lake Mariner Building 4 is going to be already started to be operational. So I'm expecting in their update, which will come out in about a week's time, to see their hash rate get closer to that 10 exahash, which is their 6-month target for 2024. And believe you me, all these miners will be looked at by the market on their strategies to get to these targets in the time frame they got. And you know, the market might not like it if they don't achieve it or don't get significantly close to achieving it. But with TeraWulf, you've got access to cheap power. So the power rate they're paying, and blended at the moment, they've got the very cheap energy at Nautilus, the nuclear power site. That's 2 cents a kilowatt hour, 24/7. No curtailment there. That's just round the clock power. However, they're using market rates where they are at Lake Mariner. And so if you look at the blended rate of both those sites there, they've been consistently generating power about 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour. And that makes a big difference. You know, if you're, you know, energy is these miners' biggest cost. And as we go through each halving, that energy cost doubles in price, because it takes twice as much energy to mine one full Bitcoin once the rewards are halved. So for TeraWulf's position there, yes, they've got some debt on the balance sheet, and people have, you know, been articulating, well, they've got the debt there, but they have managed to bring that debt down to really good level. And they've made notification that they're going to reduce that debt again. I think in July there's another payment coming off the debt. And let's not be overwhelmed by this, because some of that debt is owned by the insiders of the company anyway. So, you know, the last thing they're going to do is pull the rug from their own feet. They've got a great team and a very passionate team at TeraWulf, so that goes in their favor. We've had Paul on the podcast quite a few times now. They've got a good board there. I physically met Amanda and Fabiano, and also met Nazar Khan, the co-founder. I've been on a panel with both of those at a Bitcoin conference before, so they've got great people on the board. And the share price is now starting to probably get the recognition that they deserve. They've been a great performer for the last few years now in the Bitcoin mining space, and we'll see them grow this year. They're also looking to go into the HPC. So again, that might be a reason why some of this breakout of the share price has been quite drastic over the last few weeks. And you just articulated in the previous slide that TeraWulf, at the time of that slide being produced, were the best performing mining stock in 2024. Yeah. So it looks like everything's aligned. And yeah, we'll wait for the update next week just to make sure they reach that mid-year target.
Gotcha. Now, another one I'm excited for here, you guys. You alluded to this briefly in the intro, Anthony. Our good friends at Marathon. So they came out with some big news yesterday that they're in the game of Caspa now, which was something I was unaware of. But we've got a few questions about Marathon and CleanSpark, so we can definitely talk about both of these. Freedom has brought charts for both. I own Marathon shares personally. I'm not sure, Freedom, are you invested in this one?
Yeah, I do have Marathon shares and call options actually. So
okay,
I have Marathon shares too. Yeah.
Right on. So 3 for 3 ownership here. Big green box I see. We've got the RSI kind of mid-ground on this one. Where do you think Marathon, well, first of all, I guess, Marathon has positioned themselves as a pure play miner. So we know the Marathon, the CleanSparks, the Riots have lagged a little bit over the past few months as this HPC craze has really hit the market. For me, from a fundamental side, I've been saying, hey, that might be presenting a buying opportunity, rotate some money in while these pure plays have taken a little pause with the price of Bitcoin. That's kind of what I'm thinking in my head. Freedom, what are you thinking in terms of the Marathon chart?
Yeah, I think the same thing. Basically, I think a lot of these, HPC AI plays, they're awesome. I think they're doing well, and I think they have a great future. I do think some of that money is going to come. You saw on the Wolf chart, that little dip. I think some of that money is likely, those are going to cool off naturally, reset some of those indicators, and then some of that money is going to make its way over to the more pure play Bitcoin hodl miners like the Riots, Marathons, and CleanSpark. But if you look at the chart again, you can look at the stochastic RSI down there and see kind of where we are. I think we're just trying to find our footing here, and it's in a wave 2. It's actually in a 1-2-1-2. So right now is the most frustrating time because it seems like we're just going sideways, but really we're building a base for, the next explosive move. So, really those Fibonacci retracement levels there, you can kind of see them, kind of not. I didn't do a great job of, spacing that out, but you can see that, I have a little green box down there again, right? So I'm expecting that $17 region to hold. And I'm expecting to make our way basically to $40. Now, I don't know the exact time frame, but if I had to guess, it would be, in the September, October range. And it's going to be a pretty explosive move, I think, along with Riot and along with CleanSpark. I know there's a lot of frustration out there, but those guys aren't going to go anywhere. In my opinion. So they will run. They're just waiting on Bitcoin to turn, and Bitcoin is, playing mind games with everyone. But I think those games are about over. And once that turns, it'll really turn up the price on most of these pure play miners, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, the interesting from my perspective is that announcement for that they've been mining this Caspi token. They've always been aligned with traditional pure Bitcoin mining. This is a sort of like a move away from that, and I think it's probably took some of the sort of like hardcore Marathon shareholders by surprise a little bit, and they're running for the hills now, trying to come up with a reasonable excuse as to why the company's doing this, because that there's a group of them that the Mara pigs who just like can't see anything past Marathon. I mean, we all three of us own Marathon shares, so of course we want the share price to get to, is it 5, from 3 to 4 to 5, and up there at 8? Oh, we all want that because the fundamentally though, you've got to look back at the performance of this company in terms of the last 2 or 3 years in growing hash rate, in delivering Bitcoin, and I can hand on heart say the last 18 months to 2 years, there's probably been 2 months where it's delivered the amount of Bitcoin it should have delivered with the hash rate it's had. It's had numerous problems. They came up with this asset light, tried to sell that to the world. And it on paper, it sounds really good. It does. It's like, let's put all our money into machines because infrastructure is expensive. Well, infrastructure needs to be controlled. And you're a host company going into someone else's garage. If something goes wrong, the guy who owns that garage is going to fix his stuff before he fixes your stuff. And believe you me, they've, as I say, December last year, I was, my article end of the month was glowing for Marathon. They broke every perceivable record in Bitcoin mining that month, 1,853 Bitcoin. We then started to think, like, is this the turning point? This is what we need to see, you know, this amount of Bitcoin every month. But I said to Bryce, and Bryce, remember on the podcast in January, a little bit inside me says, you know, they need to do this in January and February to make that standard. In January, it was 1,000 Bitcoin. They dropped 850 Bitcoin from the previous month. Same number of mining days. And yes, you allow for difficulty, which could have been sort of like, you know, 5 or 6%, but not to the state where you're dropping 45% in Bitcoin over that month there. And they've never really sort of like delivered a full month. We've had these updates lately. They are starting to put in now. They do. One thing I'll give them credit for is they do put in a meaningful mining update, irrespective of how well they're doing. So all the information's in there. There's a lot of transparency there with Marathon, unlike some of the other miners who don't really go into that much detail. But they tell you about every site. They tell you how much they're mining on every site. They tell you what the amount of machines that are plugged in, the amount of machines that are actually working. They give you all the metrics. So you can't really ask Marathon for any more details other than sort of like say, please try and improve the number. They've gone now from asset light to starting to own their own facilities. I think 45% of the infrastructure is now owned by Marathon that they operate in. And I spoke to Fred personally in London back in April and said, like, where do you expect that to be by the end of 2024? And he said he'd like it to be around 80% in terms of ownership. So they'll be looking to, you know, purchase more sites or buy the sites that they're in at the moment to get that control. And we've seen production, you know, increase a little bit with these new sites now, but it still needs to be further. It's not, you know, we look at the performing companies in production every month. It's the likes of Bitfarms, it's the likes of Hive Digital, it's the likes of IREN. Some of the smaller miners that, you know, not many people know about, like SATO Technology and DMG Blockchain, the Canadian miners up there do very good monthly updates. Now, some of the smaller miners, they've got one site, one facility. You can manage one facility. You know, Bitfarms have got 15 facilities in 11 locations. So, you know, there's a lot more going on in that company. You've got to keep things moving around. But every month, Ben manages to do the, you know, and his team there manages to get the most out of the machines that they have. And they're not the most efficient machines. Bitfarms have in effect an aging fleet, and they're changing that this year. So by the end of the year, they'll have one of the most efficient fleets because they're bringing in lots of new S21s and T21 miners to replace the older miners. But Marathon, you know, this announcement about the Casper, I'm not sure. You know, I mean, I suppose from a disclosure point of view, they're being transparent. Is it gimmicky? I don't know. I don't believe in any of the other coins, to be honest, other than Bitcoin and maybe an Ethereum. I think they're the only two coins I personally hold. I don't look at the other ones. And when you talk about cryptocurrency and people get really, you know, look at the other coins in there, Bitcoin dominance at the moment is something like 50 to 51% of the whole of crypto. So if crypto was a cake, half of it's Bitcoin. The next 17% is Ethereum. So you've got 67 or 68% of the whole cryptocurrency spectrum in two coins. And the rest of it, the other 13,000 coins out there, represent 33%. And hence, that's why they're called shit coins, because there's,
I was wondering if you were going to call them that. Hey, Anthony, just to interrupt you.
That's what they're called.
Just to interrupt you quick, very timely. You were talking about Bitfarms managing all their sites. We actually did a couple upgrades on the website here, you guys, as well, based on all the HPC craze that we're seeing. So this is an example for Bitfarms. This is on the Power Mining Analysis website. We've now added the megawatts under management for all of the companies as one of the key 7 metrics. And then under the operating locations, we now have an interactive map where you can go in, you can see each individual site for all the different miners that we cover. And if you hover over that, you can see Bitfarms in South America there as well. If you hover over that, you get the name of the facility, the number of megawatts, and then we're going to color code these based on what the revenue generation is at the site. So if it's self-mining, if it's hosting, if it's HPC, whatever the case is, that's in addition to all of the metrics that we publish monthly. You can see those back 18 months on the website. So just wanted to throw that in as well, Anthony.
Just another update, Bryce, while you've got the map there.
Sure.
By next month, we're hoping to have satellite images. So when you click on one of those locations, you'll actually see Ben in the office working away there from the satellite. So that's the next sort of thing we're looking for. So make sure you log on to that website, powermininganalysis.com. We're growing it, but we take, put your comments about the website. Give us what you'd like to see more of. We want to expand it to include the other services. I mean, we've been covering self-mining. I've personally been covering it nearly 4 years. Bryce has been in the space a long time. Freedom's been in the space a long time. We've been looking at the Bitcoin mining, but as we've articulated during this conversation today, these mining companies now do far more than self-mining. And the emphasis, at the moment looks to be drawing a little bit towards HPC, but none of them are giving up the mining space. But we want to be able to start talking about all the different types of businesses that they have and make sure the website reflects the businesses that these mining companies do, as opposed to at the moment we're just showing the self-mining, because that was the emphasis sort of like, when we came up with this idea 7 or 8 months ago. Now we can see that there is a sort of like a change in the dynamics.
For sure.
And we want to be able to change with the dynamics too. So we've employed 2 people, a web designer and another individual supporting the web designer to get the website to where it needs to be. So any feedback that you can give us, have a look at the website, come back with feedback, put it in the comments to us, and we'll take that on board and take it forward. But we want this website to be the one place that people can come, look at mining information, and find everything there about all the public miners. So it's growing, as I say, at the moment. It's on its second iteration now. It's now in HTML, so it will be very, very quick when you navigate around the website. We started with Wix because we're not website experts, so Wix was an easy one to put together for the non-expert people. But we've employed a web design now with HTML ability. And that's where it's growing at the moment now. And so we do want your feedback. Have a look at the website if you can. Give us your feedback, positive or negative. We take it both on boards, and we try to drive that. Next time we speak to you guys.
Yeah, that works. And Sebastian's in the house now, so quick shout out to Sebastian. Anthony, as you're saying that, we might need to change our tagline. Instead of where all we focus on is Bitcoin mining, we'll have to say where we mostly focus on Bitcoin mining plus HPC plus infrastructure plus AI. And the other thing I quickly wanted to mention, you guys, we've been getting a lot of feedback about the merchandise, selling a lot of shirts and hats, you guys. So we've actually added a new addition to the store, the McNallie Money Roadster. So for 20 grand Canadian, you guys can pick one of these rigs up yourself and go explore the Great White North up here. Next up, you guys, back on topic, Freedom. We want to talk about CleanSpark. Let me just find CleanSpark here, because we've had a number of questions about them. Again, a pure play miner that hasn't got a ton of love. They're actually lagging since we saw the all-time highs with Bitcoin. They've come out with a series of news today, obviously a big acquisition with Grid. This was one that was swirling around on Twitter quite a bit here. I know a few people, actually, I think you might have taken a position in Grid speculatively, did you?
I did not catch that one, no, but I know a lot of people did.
Someone was just telling me that they bought some call options on Grid. So whoever was at that astute, well done. CleanSpark also picked up some other smaller facilities, I think last week as well. So from a technical analysis standpoint, I don't see any green boxes here. What does that mean, Freedom?
Yeah, so some of them I also forgot my damn watermark. Sometimes when you're doing 20 charts, it's just you forget certain things. But
it happens.
Really, the green box for this one starts at 36.71. So this one is interesting. CleanSpark is one that if you compare it to the Bitcoin chart, it's almost identical. So it's really ran with Bitcoin, and that's why, for the first part of the year, everyone was, like, wow, what is going on? Why is CleanSpark the only one running? But it's almost identical structure-wise to Bitcoin, and this is actually exactly what I think is going to happen to Bitcoin as well. I think we're in a sub-wave 4. You can see that each wave is actually broken down into 5 smaller waves. So if you look at the light blue line, the wave 2 there, that has 5 green waves within it. So right now, I believe we're in the 4th wave of this 5-wave sequence, and I believe we're heading towards, probably at least, $29 to $30, $35, $36 before we get another pullback, and then I think This one is one that actually will have another leg later, likely into the 65. That's always been my target, which I know is relatively low compared to most of the stuff that's out there. But if you look again down at the bottom where I have those little green hands, all of CleanSpark's runs start whenever, in most stocks really, when the RSI, the stochastic RSI is bottomed out. So right now we are really down at the bottom for CleanSpark. Had a nice long consolidation there, not bearish at all. So it's just cooling off for a little bit after its big wave 3, or I guess you would say the first 3 waves of the big wave 3. So I also put some arrows in there with the volume. You can see the volume is always typically highest on wave 3s because it's the most powerful wave. And then I also tried to illustrate that this is typical in consolidations, which is a bullish sign. The volume is going down, right? So if we were really seeing the end of CleanSpark, right, we would see high red volume, And if you look at all the volume bars, the green bars are dominating every single session. So there's hardly any. It's green bars are all higher. I could have arrows to all the little green bars, but green buy volume is dominating the trend, and all the red volume is going down. So that's a great sign that we're just gearing up for another run. And again, this one is tied literally directly to Bitcoin, in my opinion. So it's a lot like Coinbase. Coinbase has a very similar structure. I know this is mostly mining, but some are running very closely in lockstep with BTC, and some are not, right? So it makes sense that CleanSpark's chilling out a little bit here as Bitcoin chills out, but that's not going to last much longer for Bitcoin, in my opinion, or for CleanSpark. So,
buddy, I just rotated some money out of CleanSpark this morning. I wish I would have talked to you first, but unfortunately not. Anthony, what do you make of the grid news?
Well, it's for CleanSpark, and I suppose for grid as well. I mean, that they'll form part of CleanSpark now, so it's a good deal for CleanSpark. It gets them to where they need sites and they need energy, and this is what this delivers. I mean, it says they're acquiring it. They're not utilizing 400 megawatts at the moment, but I think they've got the capacity to get to 400 megawatts, and that's what CleanSpark need to get to 32 exahash. They need a lot more megawatts and facilities available now. So it looks like they're really gearing up to get to that 32, because there are so many companies that put in these massive growth targets this year, and there's a chase now to get to those targets. We've talked incessantly about Riot and IREN just having the one site where they've got all the power. They just need to build the actual facilities to put the mining machines in, and we believe that those two will achieve their targets. And then you've got the likes of Marathon need another 20 exahash. CleanSpark need another 14 exahash from where it was at the end of May, and also you've got then the likes of Bitfarms that needs to grow another 12.5 exahash from where it was at the end of May as well. And bear in mind, Bitfarms has gone over 12.5. So these big targets need to be achieved. This is the right step forward. And actually, in fairness to CleanSpark, and I'm a shareholder in CleanSpark. They've been chipping away and getting these sites with regularity, and we've had Matthew on the podcast. He was saying they had so many options in front of them. They're going through each option, looking at discarding the ones that are not going to go ahead with. But it looks like they had a number of options to play with, and this is quite a big option there. I mean, I don't know too much. I heard end of last week when the rumors started circulating, and I saw the grid price, and then I could have bought it online at 50 cents, and I chose not to, because again, it's rumors, and rumors can be, as they are, just rumors. But it certainly motored as each day's gone by. More and more people were starting to sort of get an understanding this was likely to occur, and even the likes of, I think, Mike Alfred in the space has started posting about when was the official announcement going to be made. There's too much speculation about this, and it got announced today. So kudos to them for getting that. There'll be a lot. There'll be a lot more of these sites. I actually do know Tom Surratt, who's the CSO from Grid. We met at a conference hosted by What Bitcoin Mining Dig's Peter McCormack in Bedford back in May. So I got to meet Harry Sullick then, and really nice guy. So he's the CSO of that company. So I think some of the senior team there, they'll move across to CleanSpark. So they'll have roles.
This is all stock, Anthony. This deal,
it's all stock. So the shareholders of Grid at the moment will receive CleanSpark stock when it happens. My only sort of thought process was, unless Grid is owned majority by the management, it should go to shareholders. It sounds like it's owned internally, more than 50%, because normally you have to, like with Bitfarms.
Yeah, exactly.
Riot will have to get the shareholders to approve, because Riot are now the actual biggest shareholder in Bitfarms themselves. They own, just under 15% of the company. And the two senior directors have a total of about 2.5% between them. So, but there's not enough for a decision to make. So the shareholders have to make a decision. In this instance here, it sounds like the senior management of that team there. Bear in mind, they're sort of in terms of the size of CleanSpark, they're relatively a small mine. This deal's 155 million, and bear in mind that's the enterprise value of the company. So there was a bit of debt in that company. As well. So when you buy these companies, you're buying the debt as well. You can't just say, I'll take the company, but forget the $60 million of debt there. You take on that responsibility too. So that's why they've been clear to put on there, we're paying 155 million, which is the enterprise value. So the enterprise value of the company is looking at the market capitalization. It's any cash in the company or Bitcoin in the company, anything that can be readily converted into cash is added to them, deducted from the market capitalization, but any debt is added to the market capitalization. Then you get an enterprise value, and that's more of a robust metric when you're then looking at comparing companies, because the market capitalization doesn't tell you enough about the company itself. The enterprise value does, in terms of what's included. So you're definitely including the debt there. And so the companies with the bigger debt have a larger enterprise value. And then when you're looking at comparing eggs and eggs, you might be paying more because of the enterprise value for there. But I think in this instance here, with the potential of that 400 megawatts, and and having access to that, and they'll probably have to build the facilities to get to that. I don't think Grid do a massive amount of Bitcoin mining. It's probably less than 100 megawatts. So they're going to have to build out facilities to get to that. But it gives them a platform to get to where they need to now. So it's going to be all hands on deck. And there'll be teams in Tennessee now, getting ready to drive what CleanSpark need to get there for the end of the year. So positive news for them. It was positive for their share price this morning. I like this TA chart from Freedom. I hope to God it gets to $65, because my shareholding will be doing quite well.
Anthony, if it gets to $65, can you buy some WD-40 or some grease for your computer chair there, bud?
Oh,
or even maybe a new chair. Who knows?
No, this chair's been with me for a long time. It's it's sentimental value.
Hey, if we get over 250 likes, we're getting Anthony a new computer chair, guys. So hit smash the like button. Cipher, Freedom. This is one we don't cover a lot. We hear a lot about the fact that we don't cover Cipher. So let's cover Cipher. David wants to know price prediction, big green box on this one. I did pull in a recent news article as well, just talking about some of their big announcements, upgrading their fleet, and obviously taking advantage of those new, more efficient machines. But let's start off with the technical analysis on this one. Cipher is one I have a small position in myself. Freedom, are you holding this one?
Yeah, I do hold Cipher. Only options though. It isn't one of my biggest. So my biggest positions by far are CleanSpark, IREN, and Wolf. And then I do have a Cipher position. It's calls for September and calls for January, both at $10 strike. So yeah, the reason these boxes are so big is because, people don't like to hear it, but there's no way to know what these things are going to extend to based on Fibonacci. So whenever you see the green boxes on my charts, I've tried to reiterate this on Twitter, but if you see the green box and we get to that price, it's a good idea to at least take some off the table, right? Because I would hate for it to stop at 11 and then you think it's going to go to 17 or whatever the top of this box is, and you don't take any profits, right? So a little side note there, with Cipher, extremely complex chart, tons of overlap. I think we're in a sub 2 with the light blue. So we're coming back into that range right now. We made a 1, and then we're basically retracing right now. So it's very similar to the marathon chart. You got a 1-2-1-2 setup, which is the most bullish thing you can actually get. But at the time, it seems like you're just going sideways. So I'm really looking for 355 to hold.
So what is a 1-2-1-2 setup? What does that mean?
So yeah, you got the white, the bigger
I see
wave.
the ones, I see the twos, yeah.
Yeah, bigger wave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see it in white. Within that, there's another 5-wave sequence within the wave 3 that I've drawn out. So there's a light blue 1, 2 in there.
Gotcha.
So wave 2s are typically what I buy. I wait for the wave 1 to go up, right? And then I wait for a wave 2 retracement. That's what I did with Wolf. That's what I did with IREN. That's what I did with CleanSpark. So right now is when I typically buy on wave 2 retracements. It's usually the sentiment is pretty low, but it's actually the best time to typically enter position. So as long as those fibs hold right there, the 378, 397, that little green box, I think that $10 is likely. So that's what I'm planning for. And as long as 355 really can go down to the bottom of that wave 2 in white. But if it got below the 0.887 fib at 378, I would be a little concerned. So technically you can retrace the entire wave, but that's kind of what I'm looking for right now.
Now, what is the whole theory of Fibonacci? I know it's based on nature and standard distribution and patterns and things like that. How does this relate to stock charts, and why do you find success with this?
Yeah, so it's based on psychology, really, and sentiment within the market. So the waves are basically how people feel at certain points, right? So at a wave 3, kind of like it is with getting into with HUT right now, IREN just completed his wave 3. You'll typically find that investor sentiment is extremely high. IREN, not to say anything, I love IREN as well, but IREN is the next big thing. Same thing with CleanSpark when it was going through its wave 3. Wave 3s have different sentiment than wave 2s, right? Wave 2 is, oh shit, I screwed up, right? I bought the wave 1 top and now I'm at wave 2, and a lot of people would sell there. Really, that's the best spot to buy, is the bottom of wave 2s. I typically sell all my positions. This is good info too. I sell all of my options in wave 3s. Because I don't want to risk, this wave 4 taking forever and me losing time decay. And also wave 3s are almost always the most powerful wave. So you could basically get a huge wave 3, right? And you could sell there in, say, June. But instead you wait for a whole 4 to play out, and then you might get a little 5. So you're not going to make any more money than you would have if you would have just taken profits at 3. That's the difference.
Because data and time decay will be eating away at that option value, or you'll be,
exactly
expiring. Gotcha. Okay.
Exactly. So
with that screen at the moment, then Freedom, I mean, we already reached 1450 for IREN. I mean, what are we now sort of going to wave? Is it wave 4 and 5? And is that
so this one, I don't have the sub waves drawn out. I should have probably. So I believe that we're actually in a sub wave 4 within that wave 3. So I think there's a little bit more to go in this wave 3, probably up into the $17, $18 range. And then we're going to get that bigger wave 4. And I kind of drew that out with the stochastic RSI. So we were really overheated when we got to that 14 range, which was the bottom of my green box. And we've kind of cooled off enough in the RSI that I think, there's a chance we're going to get another little push here. Same thing with the stochastic RSI. That's really the clue. So that's pretty much bottomed. I think there's probably another little mini run here in this blue wave 3 before we get 4. So,
and I suppose positive news just sort of like enhances the time frame of that happening. Then is that if IREN came out with a great update next week, They've gone like to say 11 or 12 exahash, and the HPC, they found another partner. Things like that can then sort of move the sort of TNF list a bit earlier than anticipated, maybe.
Yep. Yep, exactly. So when this stochastic RSI that you see at the bottom, when that does get back to oversold, I would think that you're going to get a bearish divergence, which is going to be extremely hard to explain without a mouse. But you're going to
save that one for another time.
Yeah, you're going to get basically the stochastic RSI is going to come back to the top, and that's probably going to be the top of wave 3 in blue. Then we're going to cool off again in 4, and then go up again in 5 is what I'm seeing, and what I would guess is going to happen. Another thing I wanted to point out was this perfect wave 1 here in blue. So you can see I have an arrow towards it. It's a perfect J shape with a bunch of gaps. So when I saw that, that's when I knew that I was going to go heavy in IREN whenever the retracement came. So I was waiting this whole time. I actually bought a little bit early. But that perfect J shape is a parabolic, like that's extremely strong movement. You see it a lot in altcoins. But when you see that, that's when I really knew like I was going to get a position in IREN. And of course, I wouldn't buy the wave 1 high, right? I was going to wait for this wave 2. So a lot of people were very pissed at me because IREN was at like $8, and I was like, I'm going to buy it at like 4. Now, I didn't buy it at the exact local bottom, which no one can do. I think I bought it a little early, but that perfect J, if you ever see one of those, you can see it on Bitcoin's charts too. Those are impulses, and that's a great sign that the next impulse is going to be extremely strong too. So that's kind of just something I wanted to share. If you see a perfect J like that, wait for the retrace, and then hopefully you can catch the next J.
Now, Freedom, you can see both Anthony and I zooming in here trying to, this is just so fascinating. So another question for you. You said you generally sell your option contracts, correct me if I'm wrong, in wave 3. In terms of shares, you mentioned CleanSpark, say your price target is $65 on that one. Would you buy and sell swing trade each wave, or do you park your money and not touch it?
Yeah, so great question. I will swing trade. So like I typically will have options. So I have an options account, and then I have a HODL account basically. So only two miners I have shares of right now are Marathon and CleanSpark, but I'm considering converting some options, some of my IREN options into shares. But great question. So I won't sell. I'll probably sell some CleanSpark, right, when we get to that 36 level. Maybe take 25% off the table, and then maybe as I go up in fibs. So there would be a 30, like the 36, and then their next one might be like 47, and then there might be 65, for instance. So at 36, I might trim 25%. At 47, I'll trim another 25%, and then I'll let the rest ride, hopefully to 65. Now 65, again, it could go to 100, right? But 65 is my main target. If it gets to 65, I'm more than happy with being completely out at that point. Might leave 10% in case we run to 120, who knows? It's all dependent on, a lot of it's dependent on Bitcoin, especially with the CleanSpark chart.
Well, and where I think there's so much value for guys like Anthony and myself here is traditionally we dollar cost average in, or we throw some money in when we have some in our trading account, or we sell and convert or whatever. There's not a ton of thought, at least speaking for myself, on entry timing, right? Once I decide on a company, I kind of buy it whenever I've made that decision. But using this Elliott wave theory, it's pretty evident that you can at least directionally understand where some local tops and bottoms may be, and really maximize those buys or sells. So for me, just as an outsider looking in, like you say, Freedom, even if you don't squeeze out 98% of the maximum trade, even if you can gain a couple 5-10% on your entry, your exits, it adds up over a 20-year trading career, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for most people, I would say, just watch the RSI. You're going to get a pretty good understanding of bottoms and tops. With that, you can obviously, follow people in TA as well, but you can get a lot more. You want to just catch the meat of the move, like you're talking about. You don't want to get greedy at the bottom or the top, right? So I typically average into positions, and then I average out of positions. So
gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I try and do the same. And Vincent's just asking before we move on here, Freedom, can you just explain that J shape where he should be looking on the screen?
So the J is right. If you see the wave 1 in blue, there's a little arrow. It's right above the red earnings. I think that's probably like February.
Yeah.
So there's a perfect J right there. So that's a very parabolic. That just shows that basically that's an impulse, right? So whereas this A move over here, it kind of looks the same. If you see the A move, it's a 3-wave move up. Not to get too technical, but that still looks very strong. But whenever you get a J like this, that's impulsive. That's just an extremely powerful move. That shows that the trend is going to be up for quite a long time.
That was the so that one is where the is it one? No. Oh, this is like that was in that J move. Are we talking about the J move? That's last year then, isn't it? No,
yeah, it was some crazy news. I don't know what it was, but IREN went from like $2 to like $9 in like I think 30 days.
Oh yeah.
It was insane move. But yeah,
it was. I mean, it was long overdue. I mean, I've been covering IREN for nearly October this year will be 3 years, and through my fundamental analysis, they've probably been, in terms of about 15 metrics, not just one metric, but in terms of about 15 metrics, they've been top performing miner, certainly over the last 18 months. And I've been highlighting that. And now I'm just sort of like seeing that come to fruition in terms of the market's now highlighting as well, because, there's a lot of people, who've obviously now got IREN. IREN now talked about in the same way Marathon and CleanSpark are talked about. They've gone from obscurity to sort of like one of the most well-known companies in North America, albeit they're an Australian company, but their operations are in North America, and they're starting to get the recognition for that now. It took a long time, as I say, but I was going through their numbers and I'm thinking, why am I the one picking up on this? I've had them in my portfolio for a long time and just been adding to them. I actually did sell a little bit of IREN on the way up about a week and a half ago in Dallas. So I don't use any sort of like really like you're using technical numbers there, but I was taking some profits because it was starting to become 70% of my portfolio because of the sheer jump in the share price. It was just ridiculous.
Yep.
And so I've now it's still my largest position, and I've trimmed quite a bit off. So I took a little bit off the table there. It enabled me to go into another. I actually bought some Cipher recently. Yep. First time I've ever purchased Cipher Mining. So
and you don't do any options, right, Anthony?
I just buy and sell trades. The last sort of 18 months probably had about 75 share transactions over the last 18 months there, and having 3.5-4 years knowledge of the fundamentals in the mining space, it's really helped me because plus the Bitcoin price over the last 18 months has done really well. I mean, it was at 15,000 in December 22. So, if you haven't managed to buy and sell shares in the last 18 months and make a profit, you're obviously doing something relatively wrong, because these mining companies have all excelled. Last year, in 2023, the average increase for the North American miners was between 400 and 500%. That was the average. Yep. If you got into Core Scientific in January last year, when the share price went to 4 cents, and we've met people. Bryce and myself were fortunate to meet a gentleman in Dallas at the, and it's great. You'll probably get this free, and people will be DMing you saying, "I've got 100,000 shares in this company." You're thinking, that's a hell of a lot of shares to have. Why is he spending time DMing me if he's got 100,000 shares and they're valued at $20 a share? He's like a millionaire just in one stock, Yeah. And this guy at the conference said, I bought a lot of shares last year. And the numbers he was talking about, I looked at Bryce and went, yeah, he's probably making this up. Anyway,
until he pulled his phone out, Anthony.
Yeah. His trading account out, 9 digits, $140 million of Core Scientific. And I saw it black and white. I even said to him, I think there's something wrong with your phone. It's got an extra 3 zeros on it. He went, all mine. It's all mine.
We thought it was insane.
He drove to the conference in a brand new Porsche. It was like,
yes,
awesome. Awesome. One of the biggest retail investors in Core Scientific. He went full in last year when he bought 4 million shares before January, in December, and then he topped up with I think another 18 million shares in January. So January and February, March, over that period, he bought tranches. of shares, and it was quite difficult. You had to go to pink sheets and buy them, so you've got to do a lot more. There's a lot more to get through than just like we will look. I can go on the NASDAQ, buy shares off the NASDAQ in seconds. But he had to do
a little bit different game.
It's a different game, but I mean, we actually laughed. The share price on that conference day when they announced the additional 300 megawatts for Core Scientific, the share price increased by 10% during the 2-hour conference, and he turned around. I think he turned around and goes, "Just made another 20 million."
Incredible.
That's unreal.
Well, like $200 today, it's 20 million. So that takes it to another level. So yeah.
Hey, we'll talk about cores next up, Anthony, because I think you're onto something there. But I just wanted to pause for a sec, Freedom, because you said specifically CleanSpark's chart is very closely emulating what you're seeing with the price of Bitcoin. We had a question from Brett about the Bitcoin pullback or consolidation we've been seeing here. This is only a one-day chart, so I apologize, it's not great, but can you talk to us a little bit about your Bitcoin price prediction as well? Where do you see it going this cycle?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the chart now just to see if anything changed. So I mean, in my opinion, so I've always thought, we would front run the halving a little bit, and then we would get this pause. It has been much longer than I anticipated up here, but I do think we're pretty close to turning around. So my hope is that we hold. I should have put a Bitcoin chart in here too. I didn't, but I hope that we hold basically the old bottom, which was 56.5, I believe. But if we don't, then I think we're going to bottom somewhere in 53 to 55. I don't think there's much left here. So after that, I'm thinking we're going to go to the 80s and 90s before we get another little cool off, and then we're gonna you can see on my Twitter my actual wave count. But my personal price prediction for this cycle is much lower than some like to hear, which is right around that 120, 150 area. That's my personal price target. And time frame, I know people always like a time frame, so I would say Q4 or Q1 at the latest is my best guess based on the TA. So not much more in my opinion as far as how much farther we're going to pull back. I think it's almost over. Volumes dropping off. I mean, there's no real aggression to the price movement. It's just purely consolidation. We've done it every time. Every time we get to the top we get to the old all-time highs, we chill out there for a second and we build a nice base and then we move higher. So I think the base is almost built, and I would expect, you're looking at maybe $5,000 to downside, maybe 10 if things get crazy. And then you got, 50,000 to the upside. So I think it's just a way.
Asymmetric risk reward in the industry. And I just wanted to call it out here, guys. You heard it here first. Freedom by 40 prediction Q4 of this year, Q1 of next year. Bitcoin cycle high in the 125 to 140 US dollar per coin range. That actually lines up pretty nicely, Anthony, with my sell strategy. I was saying Freedom in one of our episodes about selling, exiting and sell timing. I was going to start in the $95,000 Bitcoin price range and then work up in $15,000 increments. Kind of similar to what you were saying, taking some off the table in blocks as we go up. So that's interesting to hear that kind of lines up there.
Just to as a side comment to that there, and we've been saying on a few podcasts lately, we're now 3 days away from the end of the second quarter of 2024, and the Bitcoin price today at 61, between 61 and 62,000. Is 10,000 less than it was at the end of quarter one. So a lot of these companies, when they start releasing quarter two, and I'm talking about calendar year quarter two here, it might be different quarters for different miners, but if essentially the quarter that includes April, May, and June for those that are struggling to understand quarter two, And those results will come out probably in about 6 weeks' time, or start to come out 6 weeks' time, unless it's the company's end of year. And then you can add another month onto that because they get a lot more time to produce full year accounts. They need to be audited before they're released, so they're accurate. But, you know, some of these big hodlers are going to have to show, because of the FASB rules, they all went in there and said, we're going to now show Bitcoin at its true value. And they all showed its true value at the end of the first quarter, showing these massive net incomes. And, you know, even Hut, I think their net income for Q1 was over 250 million. Let's see what that net income looks like for Q2 for a lot of these miners with the big hodls, because, you know, when you start multiplying their Bitcoin hodl by about $10,000-$11,000, it's going to be millions of unrealized losses. You know, not physical losses, but it's an unrealized loss. So, we saw lots of green in the first quarter. The Bitcoin price, you know, is still sort of been a bit temperamental. It looks like it's ready to move up at some point, like every other previous cycle, but it hasn't yet. And this quarter won't be a glowing quarter for most of the miners. And the fact we've had a halving in the middle of this quarter means it's even worse in terms of revenues, what they're going to be physically showing. So, you know, none of the costs will be reduced. The costs are pretty much staying the same. You know, it takes the same amount of energy to mine a Bitcoin now than it did. You know, in fact, takes more now because the difficulty will have increased from Q1. So it takes more energy, but the rewards are like half of what they were getting previously. So it's going to be a real challenge for some miners, and see how they try to communicate those results out.
Yeah. Now, Anthony,
what's your spin on it?
So curious. So you're basically saying, due to the FASB rules and due to the fact that a lot of the peer plays, like the Riots, the CleanSparks, the Marathons that have the big hodls, they're going to have to write down the fair value of their Bitcoin. They're going to show big unrealized losses. Now, Freedom, you're also saying, coinciding with that, you think there may be some money flowing out of the HPC play into the peer play. So putting 2 and 2 together here, guys, are we thinking that it would be a good time, wait for Q2 to come out, underwhelms the street, companies pull back, then we see that money start to move across? Is that what you're thinking, Freedom, in terms of tying the fundamental and the technical together?
Yeah. So when are the earnings for most? When are Q2 earnings for most miners?
They'll come out at the end of July, start from the end of July onwards. So in that sort of like first 3 weeks of August, you'll probably see about, you know, probably a dozen of these miners release their earnings over that period there. And then there may be a couple like it's their end of year, and then they get till probably like September to release it. They get about an extra month normally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You'll be watching them on our channel, Freedom. You'll be seeing them all interviewing.
Yeah.
We'll interview them all. In fact, so Hive, their end of year was March the 31st. They only released their results yesterday. Now, all the other miners had them all released sort of like in May, and we interviewed every miner who released its results. We had all the CEOs on and went through all the results with them. So we're going to have Hive on in just over a week.
Which we'll do in Q2 as well, yeah.
We'll do. I think we've got Hive next week, Bryce, I think, on the channel.
We do, yeah. And so, I've got their earnings up here. When we jump to Hive, we can talk about.
Yeah, so we've got them on the channel next week to go through their earnings. So we'll do the same with Q2 for all the miners when they come out there. So what will happen is now Hive have just released their end of year now, but in 6 weeks' time they'll be releasing their first quarter, because, you know, we're already at the end of the first quarter now. It'll only take them about 5 weeks or 6 weeks to get those numbers out there. They'll be doing the Q1 at the same time they were doing end of year. So it's like they are, you know, running consecutively. So it's great for our perspective because it gives us lots of content to go through the year. People are excited by numbers.
So the majority, though, Anthony, will be mid-July, hey?
Majority, it'll start from early July and go all the way through. So yeah.
So there's your answer, Freedom. So that's kind of the timeline of when we'll start seeing the numbers, the FASB write-down.
Sorry. Can I stop there? So, no. So end of quarter is the 30th of June. You're looking at a month gap between, so they'll start releasing their results in that first week of August all the way through August. And then the likes of those that have end of years, if it's their fourth quarter up to June, they'll get to like sort of close to September to release their full year results. But yeah, there's a month from the end. They've got about a month to start getting everything together.
So does that line up with the time you're seeing, Freedom?
Yeah. So really what I think is going to happen with the miners is I think we're going to get I think Bitcoin's going to turn relatively soon, and I think the miners are going to go up basically until those results come out. So I'm expecting a pullback really in that August, which would actually line up probably well. So I think miners are going to run, whether that's like I don't think people are they're not realizing what's going to happen. I think that basically the miners will run until maybe that time ish, August, and then once those results start coming out, I think people are going to be. I think it's going to take a big hit, especially for the riots and the marathons. But basically, I'm thinking that on speculation alone, Bitcoin can move much quicker than people think. I think that it might go, it might be at 80, 90K by end of August, or by the time these companies start reporting. So that's just my thoughts. I think that people are going to just be so euphoric that they're just going to buy shit, and the miners are going to go up quite drastically until then, right? And then the numbers come out, and then we might get. If you look at it's different too because every miner has it on a different little trajectory, right? Yeah. So like the HPCAI miners are running now. I think once Bitcoin starts to run, the HPCAI miners, some of that money starts coming into the marathons, CleanSparks, riots for maybe all of July. You know what I mean? And then shit comes out and everyone's like, wait, we didn't actually do that well. Then, the big dogs sell off again. And they're kind of going to be flip-flopping.
But you're right, Freedom, that if by the time they start reporting, the Bitcoin price is already 80, 90,000, no one will even care because it's an unrealized loss that's already outdated and over, So, interesting angle. I didn't really think about that one. Core Scientific, we got Gary here, number one Core Scientific fan, Gary Rowe. Price target, he's saying $84. I thought you were going to sell quite a bit lower than that, Gary, though, last time we chatted, but let me know in the comments. Anyways, Freedom, what do you see with Core Scientific? This one has been absolutely ripping, as you talked about, $2 all the way up to 10 here. Did your green box predict that or what, bud?
Oh, yeah. So my green box off this 1-2 right here, if you go back and look at my tweets, I think it was in the $5 range that I thought the wave 3 would peak at. But it blew way through that. It went all the way to the 4.23 extension, I believe, which is insane. And you can see that huge volume come in. I think so. I had a green box here for the retracement for a wave 4, but sometimes in super bullish trends, you're not even going to get. You're not even going to hit the 0.236, which is a very common target. That's what CleanSpark's sitting at right now for its wave 4.
And in terms of frequency, like you're way more likely to hit a smaller retracement. Hey, hitting the 0.236 is a lot more likely than the 0.382.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
so gotcha. In this case, I kind of had a feeling that we wouldn't even hit it. I think I tweeted that out too and said, like, look, after a move like this, like there's so much hype. There's a good chance we don't even see 789, and I don't think we will. And I think the stochastic RSI down there at the bottom is showing that it's ready for another little pump. Same thing with the RSI up top. So I'm guessing we're going to get to that, I can actually calculate it. I didn't hear, but 16, just by eyeballing it, $16, $18 range before a substantial cool off. But again, this isn't the end for this one. So you're going to probably see a cool off back to where we are, honestly, after we hit 16, and then it's going to go. Then you're talking the Gary prices, like 60s, 80s, but it's got to build out a little bit of a base first, in my opinion. But I do think we see 16, high teens, in this next move again from now until August, I would think. So
yeah, from my perspective, and I've just seen that comment there, $84 is a bit extreme. I mean, next year they'll start receiving revenues for HPC. So at the moment they've got 270 megawatts contracted with CoreWeave. That's going to give them when and this is like not 2025, in 2027, when they've paid back the $405 million loan that they're getting to build these facilities, they'll start getting, the best part of $850,000 a day in profit from that contract. Now, if they, for instance, CoreWeave were able to take the whole 500 megawatts at the same rate they're paying for the first 270, that would give Core Scientific close to $1.5 million a day in profit. And if you look at that from an annual basis of close to 500 million, and then multiply that by 20 to give you sort of like a price target, that would probably be about a third of what that value on there is there. Now, obviously, they've got the Bitcoin mining, so I'm not adding any Bitcoin mining, but I know for the next sort of 6 to 9 months that the profits in Bitcoin mining aren't going to be very substantial. I mean, the calculation people should be doing now is look at that HPC contract, look at what the daily profits are, and convert that into what a Bitcoin miner would need to achieve in terms of profit from Bitcoin mining, not just revenues, what they'd have to deliver in profits. What sort of hash rate would these miners have to deliver that level of profit that Core Scientific are getting at the moment? And that's only going to increase. So, if they were even to get sort of like 20%, then you may be looking at sort of like $30. But when this year, and it might happen in the next 2 or 3 months, when the warrants are converted and the notes are converted into shares, there's going to be something like 403 million shares on the market for Core Scientific. So at $16, that gives that company a 6.4 billion market capitalization with zero debt.
Wow.
Now, Marathon's at 6 billion at the moment, or just under 6 billion. So it certainly, makes it into, and actually that I can fully anticipate, at the moment that Core Scientific will become the most valuable Bitcoin mining company because of that contract and because of the likelihood they'll achieve from what we heard at that investor day in Dallas, or at the Denton facility, the flagship facility for Core Scientific, just over a week ago, which was attended by 40 Wall Street analysts who were just mad keen on listening to everything HPC related. Yeah. Once they get that other 230 megawatts allocated, and most of it could go to CoreWeave. They've got options to increase the contract even after buying another 70. So
you think that's priced in, Anthony? Because
I don't think it's fully priced at the moment. No chance.
They announced the 200, then they announced basically a third more with the 70, and the share price hardly moved.
I think people are still, we've got to take things into context. Just in fact, under 6 months ago, Core Scientific was still in Chapter 11.
Gotcha.
They've got $600 million of debt. One thing I do like about the debt, though, is there's a plan. Most companies who have debt, there's not always a plan to how they're going to pay it down. There's an actual physical plan to get rid of that debt. And all it takes is for the share price to get to a certain level before that debt's extinguished, because, a lot of the shareholders, myself included, have got lots of these warrants. So I've got Core W warrants and Core's Z warrants. And, at certain price levels, I have to physically put the option in to transfer my Core's W warrant and get a share for that. And that's going to be at a price of, I think, $6.93, something like that, under $7. I've got to physically do that. I've got 2.5 years to do that. I don't have to do it straight away. I've got 2.5 years. Now, that warrant has a value because I could sell that warrant and give someone else the ability to have it to get a share at a reasonable price. So
just
the warrant
like an
has
option.
value.
Yeah.
And but with regards to the notes in place, they're convertible a lot far quicker. In fact, actually, in the next few days, once it goes past 20 days, having reached, I think, $7, once the share price was at $7.70, is it? Once it's got 20 days at that price, continuous, them notes will be converted into shares. So that's 200 odd million debt gone straight away. That's off the balance sheet straight away. Wow. And then once the Core Z warrant, once the share price reaches, I think it's $9.82, 83, within 20 days of being over that level, that warrant is already automatically issued as well. So there's only the Core's W warrant that relies on the individual to option the warrant.
Yeah, the Core Zs are penny warrants, right?
Sorry?
The Core Z's are penny warrants. They
the
automatically.
Penny warrants, but it's penny. It's a notional. It's a transaction fee. It's a notional amount.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you'll effectively apply and get those shares added to your share account. Once the share price has been over, I think it's like 982, 983 for 20 days. Then there'll be a notice coming out, and then you can apply for those shares to be added to your account, or up to that period in time, or after that, but you can still sell that warrant on the market. It's still got a value. And today, the Cause W warrant has got a value of just under $9. So you could sell the Cause. So the Cause Z warrant's got $9, and the Cause W warrant is $4.56. So those are, you can sell those warrants today, and then make the decision to buy the main shares when you want to. But once that debt's cleared, it opens up so much more for Core Scientific. They can then start to hodl their Bitcoin, something they can't do at the moment. The caveats about having debt is, that was given to them from coming out of Chapter 11 is you must sell your Bitcoin mine within 10 days of mining it. So Core Scientific will never hold a hodl until the debt's removed. Now, Adam Sullivan, the CEO, is quite clear. Once the debt's gone away, we are hodling.
For sure.
We can see the value, and they are going to stay. The fact they're moving into HPC and that's taken all the limelight off the Bitcoin mining, they're very adamant. They're a Bitcoin miner as well. They've been in this space a long time. They've mined the most Bitcoin of any public miner out there. No one's beat Core Scientific in mining Bitcoin over the last 3.5 years. It's only this last couple of months where Mara's now starting to produce more with the fact it's got like 10 exahash more in terms of hashing power. But the whole of 2023, when Core Scientific was in Chapter 11, it mined, more than Marathon did last year, and it had a fraction of the hash rate. So it's a very, from an operational company, even though it's in Chapter 11, extremely consistent as a mining company. It does everything it says on the tin. It doesn't have bad updates. It doesn't have the best update, but it's so consistent. And with Adam and the team there, we feel quite comfortable that they're going in the right way.
Yeah, we certainly do. And that was Core Scientific. We were just wrapping up there, you guys, the fundamental side of things with Anthony. Now, moving along, we're going to talk about Bitfarms. I realized we didn't really give them a full shake at the start. We used Bitfarms as an example slide. Then we'll talk about TeraWulf, which is actually one of my largest and Freedom's largest positions. And then maybe we can rip through a few of the miners that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. But Bitfarms here, Freedom, obviously on the fundamental side, we're seeing a lot of developments, a lot of press releases, expansion, guidance, and obviously M&A discussions. On the technical side, I see the green box here. What's your price target on Bitfarms, given this kind of Q4, Q1 cycle top you feel may happen in Bitcoin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I do think Bitfarms had a nice move off the ground. I think that it's likely that we're going to get a pullback kind of soon. You can see there I got the arrow on the stochastic RSI. Usually when Bitfarms gets up there, if you look at the past, right, if you look at the other 3 times that the blue has crossed over the orange, you get a sell-off essentially, right? At least initially. So it's just like all the other charts. You got to watch the stochastic RSI. I think we're due for just a small cool off, maybe another 20% or so, and then it's going to set up a nice wave 2 buy zone, which I personally might be buying. Not financial advice, of course, but it's going to set up a nice little inverse head and shoulder here. If you look at the 1 or the I in pink and then the A and the B, that's a shoulder. And then you come down here to the C area, that's the head. And then this orange wave 1 and 2 are going to set up another shoulder. So you'll have an inverse head and shoulder here. And
I see it.
The target will line up almost exactly with my green box. So a lot of times, typical traditional patterns like head and shoulders, rising wedges, all that stuff lines up a lot of times with Elliott waves. So I'm looking for a pullback into that support region. I should have put some fibs on there, but I will post a chart later. I'll post all these charts and make sure that anything I missed I have fibs on, so you guys know a certain. I'll give you a green box for that wave 2 retracement, and then hopefully, if you're not in, you can catch it, and if you are in, then you're not worried at all if we do retrace a little bit farther. So,
yeah, amazing. We'll have to start doing a monthly series with you or something, and you can come on here and talk about this in real time as we move through these waves. The other one we were getting quite a few questions about was TeraWulf. I know you mentioned, I think this is a top 3 position for you. It's a top 3 for me as well. Anthony, are you holding Wolf?
Not currently, no. I had some in 2023, and I bought a few shares and then sold when it got close to the $4 range. But I'm certainly looking at TeraWulf now, and I think now with all the ducks in a row now, and I'm glad that the share price is recognizing what the company are doing. So it's something like I say, I only bought Cipher this week for the first time, so TeraWulf will probably be one of the few that I haven't got now. I think so I'll start looking at maybe to put some capital into TeraWulf as well.
Yeah. So TeraWulf, technically, I mean, we kind of hit this one earlier, but I'm looking for that $6 to $7 range first before a pullback, and then you can see the top of the A where that last peak was at about 4-ish, where Anthony probably sold.
Yeah.
It's probably going to go a little higher than that, right, and then come back and make that a base, right, for its next move. So you're going to basically flip that area into new support. So I would think $6 to $7, and then we're going to probably come back into that 4 area and retest that from the top, and then it'll probably go again, and that move can be, probably easily $10. I'm thinking, but again, I have targets as high as $23. I know some people have targets that are, 50. It's quite unlikely, but anything's possible in these names. I give out what's most realistic, and I think that anywhere between $10 and $20 is probably realistic, but it's gonna be later this year, in my opinion. We're gonna have to hit 6, 7, maybe 8, and then chill out a little bit, in my opinion. Let all these indicators reset. So,
gotcha. Now we're getting a question from Jordan just about the accuracy of this Elliott wave theory. What's kind of your batting average with these trades when you're basing it just on the technical side of things?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty high. I mean, that's kind of where my I try to remain humble, but my calls on Twitter are how you get followers. Basically, when you're in TA, right? I mean, you're either right or you're wrong, which is nice. So the more you're right, the more people will start to believe in you, and the more you're wrong, you're not going to gain a following. So for me, I mean, Elliott wave is the most accurate for me, as long as you understand the rules, and it takes a lot of time. So it says, how long have you been an Elliottian? I would say pretty much right when I started. I mean, there's a year or two in there where you're just guessing. Learning normal TA, which is more your typical head and shoulders patterns, your rising wedges, rising channels. Then I got into more using indicators, and then I found Elliott wave, and now I kind of pair Elliott wave with all the other traditional TA. But Elliott wave is kind of it's pretty accurate as long as you understand the rules and you understand. And there are a lot of rules. It would take many hours.
Do you have a normal job, or is this your job full time?
Yeah, I have a normal job. I sell software into hospitals, but yeah, this is what I would want to do full time. So hopefully can make that transition eventually. But it does take a lot of time, and especially Elliott wave to learn. And it kind of seems like gibberish, kind of out there at first, but it's actually one of the most accurate. Once I found it, I never left. So, but I do use it in conjunction with a lot of other indicators. You'll see most Elliotticians that are good, they won't just rely on Elliott wave. They'll use stochastic RSI, MACD
to support that. Yeah, yeah. Support it. Yeah. Have you covered it twice in your trading at all?
Do I use this? I use RSI.
Have you covered it in your trading courses that you've done?
No, so I did quite a few option courses actually in Utah as well, Freedom, when I was getting into this. So I learned a lot of the option strategy. We did learn about MACD and RSI. They basically would say pick a few indicators to kind of help support your option trades. But I don't know a lot about Elliott Wave. I definitely think there's something here though, and I definitely see the value in combining technical alongside fundamental, which is why I say we'd be more than happy to have you back for kind of an educational series on this. And again, you guys take it or leave it. It works for some, maybe not for others, but I think there's definitely something.
I'm certainly learning something today. Definitely.
Yeah. Now I wanted to do two more. Soluna was one I was really curious about because this one has seen a ton of trading action. This is one that we've talked about a lot on the channel as well. So if we could get your thoughts on Soluna, Freedom. Yeah. And then we had a question here. Again, you guys, not financial advice. One of your followers on X would like to know your top your top 4 miners by conviction based on technical analysis heading into year end here. So I just wanted to give you a heads up so you can start thinking about that. First and foremost, let's talk Soluna. What are we seeing on the charts here?
Yeah, so Soluna was one I actually had quite a few people ask me about, and I remember saying, "Look, I'm waiting for volume, to come in." So huge volume bar right there, and I still didn't get in, unfortunately, because I wasn't paying.
That's the Burj Khalifa volume line, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. huge volume right there, and I think it's going to go a little bit higher. And then it'll probably chill out a little bit, but this pullback. So once we get to the top of wave 5, there'll be an ABC pullback, probably into like this $7 range again, and it'll line up with. It'll kind of create a new base. So you can see all the price action up here at the 6, 7, 8 level. It's probably going to come back and make that new support, and then it's going to go much, much higher. But if you look at the stochastic RSI and the RSI. Starting to get a little bit up there. So I would assume maybe a little higher, and then a little bit of a cool off, and then you're going to get that 5th wave.
And Soluna's down 13% right now. They're trading at 613, so that may be the cool down.
So it might have already hit that. See that 1.618? That's the golden ratio at 784.
Yeah.
That's a normal area for a typical third wave, and also the 1.38 extension, but I was thinking it might go to 2, but it looks like if that's the case, it's probably in its blue wave 4 now, and turning all that price action between 4 and 5 into new support, and then it'll probably go higher into that. I have to wait to see where 4 goes in order to project 5, but that would make sense that it topped around the 1.618. That's a very common third wave target in Elliott Wave.
Yeah, we've got the CEO on the podcast in literally 2.5 hours time. So
nice.
Be interesting to get his update there. In all honesty, they are a small miner. I mean, sometimes we get criticised for having small miners as part of the group. But you know what? IREN were in terms of a hash rate size when they came to my analysis, they had less hash rate than Soluna has at the moment. So miners start small, and some of them can get really big. So I love the Johnny-come-latelys who got into IREN in the last month or so, thinking they've been there all the time. But I was there, 2.5 years ago when they started, so I've seen the whole action there. Yeah. And from a fundamental standpoint, they are still probably my conviction going forward. They just seem to do everything right. They've got rid of the debt. They've had a few rocky moments. They had the issue with NIDIG. It's still not gone away, but that'll be resolved soon. And even if they don't sort of win that case, they know what the amount of money they'd have to pay. And it's not in terms of their market capitalization. It's not gonna really change the price of anything now. Mm-hmm. It might have done 10 months ago when the price was a fraction of where it is today. But they're established now as probably the 4th biggest mining company after Riot. And so, in fact, it'd be interesting today. I think Core Scientific might have overtaken them today with the share price. I think IREN was a little bit off today, and Core Scientific is holding where it is there. So they're both around the 1.8 billion. But Yeah, I mean, Soluna's, a small company, but it seems to be punching above its weight. It's got a lot of, it's going to be, the market capitalization today is something like 25 million. So it's not a big company. I mean, we joked about, I could probably go in there and put a bid for the company. I couldn't, but it's that small. It wouldn't take, maybe me and you, Freedom, together could put a bid in for the company. So the fundamental and TA experts are going to go join together and buy a mining company.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're going to bring in, this is before the HPC announcement this week, about $38 million in revenues. And so if you're thinking you can bring in $38 million revenue on a 25 million market capitalization, I'd like to see Marathon Digital bring in sort of like, $8 to $9 billion of revenue this year. They're going to get not even a tenth of that. So, the market capitalization, the market doesn't really understand. It's starting to sort of get to know them, and maybe Bryce and myself, get a little bit of credit for the fact that we've covered them now for about 8 months, and we cover all the updates, and to give people a chance to say, here's your starting point. Now go and do some more analysis before you make a decision. We're not going to say go and buy the shares of these companies. We both tell our subscribers when we buy shares and when we sell shares. We're quite transparent about that. But we don't tell people to buy any shares. That's why I don't do what you're doing here is great, because I don't do this side of it. However, in 6 months' time, I'll go back to these graphs and see how many you got right, and then we'll get you on the show, and I'll give you the headmaster's report as to how you did. So, look forward to that day.
We're running low on time here, you guys. We've been going almost 2 hours, which it sure doesn't seem like. It's gone by really quick. Yeah. Freedom, here's your claim to fame, buddy. I used to watch BNN Market Call. It's a Canadian show. Guests would come on, they'd give their top picks. Yeah. And then when they came back the next quarter, they'd show them on screen and you'd have to answer. Yeah. So I don't have that set up here. We're not going to show it on screen. But what are your top 4 miner picks from now until December based on the TA, not financial advice?
Yeah, so I would say... yeah, definitely not financial advice, but based on percentage gains from here, I do think the HPC AI plays have ran a lot harder. I think that some of the bigger miners are going to run harder from now until December. So I would put CleanSpark in there for sure. I would put Cipher in there for sure. I would put Marathon and Riot also probably in there. Another bonus pick that I saw is SATO. I was going to go to that chart. That's probably the best setup.
Let's throw SATO up. Yeah, definitely.
Probably the best setup that I've seen as far as a small cap mini. People like those type of plays.
Okay, so let's see the legend here, slide 21. Let's see if I got that. Perfect. So walk us through this one, and if there's any others you want here, we've got slides for all of them, and I've got another 15 minutes or so. So feel free. Freedom if you want, but SATO Technologies, what do you see?
Yeah, so SATO, another one's Bitfarms that I do think is going to do very well. And it's not to say the HPC AI plays aren't going to do well. It's just that they've already ran very hard recently, right? So they're due to cool off, and I think some of that money is going to move back into the more pure play miners like we talked about. But SATO, this one has a really interesting setup. I think it's a pretty clear wave 1 leading diagonal there and the blue rising wedge. And then you get a clear ABC 3-wave move down. I think that this one can easily go to $2. Now I wouldn't enter yet. I would wait for that wave 1. So like we talked about in the wave 3 in blue, there's going to be a 5-wave sequence, kind of like how you can see over here. On the left, you got a 5-wave sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to be the same way in this 3-wave move, and I would wait for the wave 2 pullback. So if I play this, will wait for a wave 1, which will ideally give us some green volume, and then there will be a wave 2. Almost the exact same situation as Bitfarms is in. They already had their wave 1, and now they're going through a wave 2, and that's where I would personally enter. But I think this one could probably 10x pretty easily. The stochastic RSI and the RSI are bottomed. So I don't know the fundamental piece, but if there's any catalyst coming up, this thing is in a prime position to run pretty hard, I think.
Yeah.
That's
From a fundamental perspective, and you look at these mining companies, the floor for hash rate at the moment is about 100 million per exahash if you're looking at valuations. So when Riot went in to buy Bitfarms recently, the offer they were giving on the table worked out at approximately about 100 million per exahash. And people were saying, oh, that's low. So SATO technology, Bryce, what's the market cap today? Is it about 20 million?
Yeah, I think it in US was. I have a market cap slide here too. One sec.
So in terms of market cap, I can't.
And keep in mind, Anthony, they're listed on the venture, so this would be.
That's in Canadian. So 16 million in Canadian is what? That's about $3 in US, is it? Something, I don't know what it was. No, so say for instance, if that's 16 in Canadian, that's going to be about, I don't know, about 11 million in US dollars. They've got half an exahash. So let's round that up to a whole exahash and double the market capitalization. Then you're looking at sort of, let's be generous and say it's 24 million USD for their 1 exahash of hashing rate. That's about a quarter of where Riot priced in Bitfarms. So fundamentally, that is one of the lowest costs per hash rate of all those miners on the sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it probably is the lowest.
That's the fundamental. Now, I can tell you from an operational point of view, in the last 3 years, there's only been sort of 2 or 3 miners that are consistently in the top 3. That's Bitfarms, Hive Digital, and IREN. In terms of operating every month, getting the most out of the machines that they mine. SATO technology, since we've been included in our analysis, they're the only miner that's broken into that top 3 this year. So in 2024, they're actually second at the moment behind Bitfarms, closely followed by Hive. So Hive are literally a whisker away from SATO, but they're in second spot. So fundamentally, using cost valuation, using operational productivity, they actually stand up really well compared to the rest of the miners. But let's be honest, they're a small miner. Mm-hmm. So how much more can they grow? Well, the share price, it would be nice if that share price got to anywhere where Freedom, expected it to, because what that does then is that bigger share price gives an opportunity then to raise money through a dilution at some point. At the point in time now, with a $16 million Canadian market capitalization, if you sell 10% of the shares in the company, you're only going to get, not even 10% of the money, because you have to offer them at a discount anyway. They can't have an ATM. They've got to go to the market and say, we're selling these shares, and these shares need to be discounted because you're then making more shares available for the company at the same market capital level. So if you had 100 shares and the value of the company was $100, and you're now saying we're going to sell another 20 shares, you have 120 shares with $100 value. So the shares are less than $1 each. That makes sense to everyone. Mm-hmm. And so SATO would like the share price to go higher before that becomes a viable option to use that to grow. But they do everything fine. They have like the one facility. I mean, we went to Dallas to the core scientific facility at Denton, and their repair center was 25 megawatts, and that's bigger than SATO's 20 megawatt site. So just the repair center for Core Scientific had more power than SATO as a company. Yeah, but valuation there, people again like Soluna. Soluna's will equally be as in terms of valuation as low, if not even lower than or undervalued as SATO. But bear in mind, there is other reasons why the market capitalization is where it is. But there's certainly places to go with these miners, certainly. And I quite like that chart there. I mean, it's as I say, I'm learning a lot today. I don't have any SATO at the moment. I've spoke to the CEO, Romain, and in UK, it's quite difficult to buy SATO on some of our exchanges.
Yeah, there's a listing issue. Hey, I just want to quickly jump into Bitdeer, guys. I got a couple messages on X for Bitdeer. This is one we have prepared as well. Obviously, a lot going on. We just had Bitdeer on the channel for an interview in terms of their technology roadmap, talking about their HPC AI. What do you see on the chart here, Freedom?
Yeah, so this one's had a pretty decent run lately. So I think this is ideally what we're looking for in a SATO, like the run off the lows. And then we're going to be buying in this green box. So I think that this one, I haven't looked at the price action today, but it's probably getting pretty close. If you see that.
It's up 7% today.
Okay. So that's why I kind of gave it a little more room there in the wave one. Because even though this is kind of crossing over, if you look at the previous times again, where this blue crosses the orange and the stochastic RSI, that's typically a local top. So you can see we're getting close, right? So I would be careful buying up here, but whenever we do get this retracement into this zone, typically, you're going to be in here, but you could go all the way down to this 0.887 fib, which would be about $6. If it got down there, anywhere in the $7-6 range, that would be a great buy, but it might not go that low, right? So that green box could extend down to, I would say, at least 640. And I would be, if you wanted to get long, I would be buying there and riding that thing up to mid 20s probably is my best guess. Definitely 20.
Gotcha.
So,
now, were there any others, Freedom, specifically you wanted to touch on here today? I know we're past time.
Yeah, let me see. What do people want? I don't know which ones we've.
Let me pull up a few of the others. We can just go through a couple of the ones we haven't mentioned yet.
Have we done Bit Digital?
No.
Yeah,
we haven't done Bit Digital. Let's take a look at that one. That's an interesting one right now too. Looks like you have some pretty aggressive moves there.
Yeah. So Bit Digital, this one is kind of in the same situation as Bitdeer right now, technically. So I'm looking for a little bit more maybe upside. I don't know what it did today, but it looks like the rally's kind of losing a little steam, and it'll probably pull back in that too. And again, some people see that as bad, but that's what I like. Yeah, that's what I like to see. That's the opportunity. So I love wave twos personally because that's when I buy. So ideally, a little bit higher. And then probably going to get a retrace in that wave too, and that's going to be the buy before you see $10, I think.
Now, when does this reset? Like, would you have to wait until this plays all the way through to wave 5, and then you'd reset the whole thing, or do you continually move this out as new information comes along?
So that ABC, you can see the bigger structure there. So those targets are based off that A wave, the A to C. Basically the ratio, which is typically 1-to-1. So that would be 15. So that means the length of the A is going to be typically the same length as the B to the C leg will be the same as the A. So that's one ratio. So in this case, it would be 15. Now it can go all the way up to 1.618. So that's not even on the screen, but a conservative guess would be $15. The 1-to-1 ratio. That's a very common target. So that won't change, but the sub waves in here will. The purple waves.
Sure.
As we get more information, we can see, and even in this case, right? If wave 1 extends to $8, well, you're not going to go to 15. You're going to probably be going to 35. The mini wave there. So you can kind of use the clues we get, right? So if wave 1 in purple ends up going to $7, or $8. You're going to go much higher than 15. That's when I would probably move that top target into, I would probably take 15 out and move it from 26 up, right?
So
it just ratchets up the whole model, hey?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
So that's what happened with cores. Cores, IREN went way higher in its wave 1 than I anticipated. And I was like, "Holy shit! I'm going to be buying this because it's."
Was that the announcement, Freedom, when they announced the 30 exahash? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was actually during the J. So I don't know what happened with the J, but that move right there, I was like, "Holy shit! This is going to absolutely fly." At some point.
Next time you see one of those, you shoot your buddy Bryce a text, okay?
Here's one produced by Bryce's kids who are aged like 1 and 2.
This is
just a squiggly line. Doesn't mean anything.
This is Griffin, and I think it's just because they don't have enough trading history maybe, but this one looked quite different than the other ones. Can you just explain what's going on here?
Yeah, so I put this one in here is because basically this one kind of looks like Soluna before it actually popped. But really, we're just trying to find a bottom here. So this one is not viable yet, technically, from a technical standpoint. So it's just basically a downtrend. So that's why I didn't even put anything in here yet. We're waiting for volume to come in, and that blue line is a good place to flip, right? To support and resistance flip. So I wouldn't even chart this from an Elliott wave standpoint yet until we get some green volume and a pop from the lows. But if I were to guess how it would come off the lows in a fashion like that. That's just an example of, there's no reason to, I mean, that's not a great chart. No offense to Griffin so far, right? But it can be. It's just in a downtrend for now. Until we see otherwise. So.
Makes sense, and I appreciate you shedding some light there. So you guys, we're going to wrap up here, going 2 hours and 10 minutes now. Absolutely phenomenal session, Freedom. We really appreciate your thoughts, your input here. You're more than welcome to come back anytime you'd like and provide an update and give us a little bit more information here, help educate the community. Anthony, I know I sure learned a lot. I'll pass it to you for some closing thoughts, and then we can wrap for the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've already said there's a place and a space for both the fundamental and the technical analysis. And like yourself, I've learned a bit today, and hopefully I'll start looking a bit more at the RSI and looking at trying to learn more from these graphs when I to help just build my knowledge base. I do like the fundamentals because it's tangible, but the technical analysis there is clear to see, and it's supported by the information as well. So it's not just a case of someone drawing some lines on a chart. There is some facts, and the whole world is governed by numbers anyway. So being an accountant, numbers are everything to me. So I can align with what Freedom said today. We're so close on terms of where we see mining stocks going. I really hope they get to these levels, because I mean most of the stocks that are on this over the 2 hours. So I've covered all the options at the moment. And
and Anthony, the good news here is if you learn enough and we get good at this, you might be able to have Freedom by the time you turn 40, buddy. You got
I've got years to go. Yeah, years.
7 more years till you're 40.
I mean, he jokes about this, but I'm 58 in about less than a month's time, and we were sat with Jason, and Jason's like, I think he's 38 or 39. Jason thought I was the same age as him. He couldn't believe what he said. He said, I retired 7 years ago, and then just came back really into the space during COVID. So this has been a whole new experience. To do something that you enjoy doing, and it becomes like your sort of like day-to-day job, and who knows? I say I'm 50, probably one of the oldest people in the space. When I look at all these, most of these CEOs, I mean, so Adam's really young. My son is older than Adam. That puts into context, and he's a CEO of Core Scientific. So, but
very collaborative, regardless of the age. Everybody's helping.
Everyone is good, and it's great that we've had you on. I mean, really is. I mean, we've had some really good guests on the last few weeks. We've had yourself, we've had DR, we've had Sebastian, and I feel we'll learn more from you coming back on again and teach us more about the technical analysis and showing us what we looked at today, how we look back in the future and all that, and see how it goes by. I mean, joking aside, I hope everything turns out, but it only just increases our knowledge base in the space, and that's what we're all trying to do. We thirst for knowledge, and today we've had a great lesson from you, team. So thanks very much for being part of it.
Yeah. Thanks.
There you have it, you guys. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, leave a comment in the section below. Freedom will give you the last word, and thanks again for your time today.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys, for having me on first and foremost, and glad to provide a technical hand in the, to just give a little counterbalance to all the great fundamental analysis that goes on here and in the space. So Thanks for having me on. I appreciate everybody on Twitter for following me and all the support lately. So shout out to all you guys. And yeah, just thanks for having me on. It's been really cool. Definitely something new for me. So yeah, thanks a lot and appreciate the opportunity. I'll be glad to come back and we can check out and see if all this shit's right. So
exactly. Do a little maintenance check. So you'll be busy doing your new charts here. We'll have you back next month or so, and we'll definitely see you in Nashville. We'll call it a team building exercise. We'll go have a couple drinks together there, Freedom, and talk technical analysis. Thanks so much, you guys. Let us know if you're going to these conventions. We'd love to meet up with you. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you guys.